think I owe you an update. So back in 2022, I decided the spec of the car needed to change. I was after more power. I had the MED cast pistons in at the time, and I wanted to make a few other alterations. I had a Fusion Fabrications exhaust manifold and standard alloy one. I thought I'll see if I can get some more horsepower out of a few other modifications. So as I said, 2022, took the engine out. I got myself a custom set of JE pistons with PTFE lined and to a specification that brought the compression ratio up just slightly. So it's now at 9.5 to 1. And I spoke to Ben at Bagsport, and I got a custom exhaust manifold and inlet manifold made for the car. So whilst the engine was out, I had it engineered for oil squirters. So it's something I've seen on the Turbo Mini forums a lot. Something I thought, well, try and bring some cooling effect to the piston crowns. I also changed the cam from the Kent 266 to the Evenbar Phase 2 cam, which is commonly used throughout a lot of the turbo world. On top of that, I ended up speaking to Paul at HRE, and he did a oil-fed idler for the drop gears, as well as doing a few bits and pieces just around the edge. The big change though came from going from the SCS D400, which I had with the Specialist Components kit. So I went from that to a Haltech Elite 1500 ECU. The reason behind it, the Nexus software that comes with the Haltech is great for idiots like me, and a lot of the help is online as well as guidance, and it's actually very, very easy to use. So I ended up stripping out the wiring loom, and out of the standard MPI wiring loom, the Specialist Components wiring loom, and the standard loom that came with the Haltech Elite 1500, I made my own custom loom. So a few of the bits and pieces went on with that because I'd got the brevity to do more. So there's more sensors. So I've got a NOx sensor, fuel pressure sensor. The charge cooler pump is connected to the ECU as well, so that can be turned on and off when it's actually needed. As well as finding a few of the bits and pieces I could actually do here, there and everywhere. I have changed a few sensors and now I've got more information, and the beauty about having more information and data for the ECU, it makes mapping a lot easier. I got it all together at the beginning of last year after a lot of frustration, and I took it to the rolling road. So the first one I took it was to Paul, who's King Tuner on Instagram. He's known within the Haltech environment to do really great tuning. He had a go at it, but we had an issue at 5,500 RPM where it almost sounded like it was breaking up. So we tried a few bits and pieces there. We tried different spark plugs. We tried different fueling techniques. Just couldn't break that 5,500. At the time, it was making 140 brake horsepower and about 155 foot-pound of torque at 10 psi. But we just couldn't get the high-end boost, and we couldn't get it quite over the line. So from that, we took away that the engine is strong and it's got a good power number to it. However, there was more. So bit of frustration, bit of head scratching. So he said it might be the ignition. So I had an MPI coil pack, but the Haltech Elite doesn't have ignition, well, an igniter within that. So I had to have an external one, which is just down the side. So I tried that, and it didn't quite work. So I ended up going for those of you observant in the engine bay, I ended up going for a Volkswagen coil pack, and that's got an internal igniter and well known within the modified car scene. I also made my own HT leads as well, which is actually easier to do than I originally thought. I thought I'd have to buy loads of crimping tools, etc. But the kit I ended up getting had got one like a stick in a vice. So we tried that, put it all back together. But unfortunately, Paul was busy then for the rest of the year. So I ended up going to Chris at EFI Parts. So those of you who followed the channel in the previous years will have known I've been to Chris before. He was happy to work with the Haltech ECU, and I went there at the beginning of the year. Sadly, we ended up with the same problem. So at 5,500 RPM circa, we started getting breakup again. So It became a bit frustrating. I was a bit down by it, but he sent me away with some ideas. So I came back, had a cup of tea, did a bit of musing, and I started coming up with an action plan. So I'll take you to the board and show you. So I went through a few methodologies once I got back. The rolling road was very disappointing. I have to take my hat off and give great thanks to Chris. He spent hours trying to sort the problem out, but sadly it didn't come to fruition. The car should be running about 180, 190 brake horsepower, but we couldn't get a proper figure because the car wouldn't rev out past 5,500 RPM. So with his advice and a few people online as well, I started going through what else could I check. So when I got back, I did a compression and a leak down test. Across the board we were looking between 157 and 160 psi, so actually really good figures. The leak down test was good on all cylinders. I did double check cylinder 1 because that was the big problem for it, so I did double check that one. These were done 2 or 3 times as well, so it wasn't just a one-off. They were done with a little bit of oil down. They weren't that too dissimilar either, so in terms of the health of the engine, it's pretty damn good. So check the valve clearances next. Speaking to Elliot, who's the RSP Turbo on Instagram, if you guys ever follow him, he said have a double check on your clearances for your valves, but maybe put them out a little bit more. So I was running 13 thou, so he recommended going to 15 thou on it. So there's across the board. I'm running MED 1.3 to 1 rockers, so as you'll appreciate, you have to go a little bit further with the larger ratios. The inlet system as well, I'll put some pictures up to show you guys. I had a PTFE spacer in. Now the issue was facing that the PTFE spacer wasn't quite lining up with both the inlet manifold and the drive-by-wire setup and putting a dip. So there's potential when the injectors were squirting in, it was pooling in there, so it wasn't actually making that homogeneous mixture to end up going into the inlet manifolds. So that ended up being removed. The other one was looking further down for development and helping Cole a bit, was checking the injector angle of his drive-by-wire unit versus the specialist components one I had before. I never had a problem with the specialist components one. So we had a look at the injector angle on both of them, and they both sat at 45 degrees, so not much of an issue. Their location forward and back, again, wasn't too dissimilar. Now the other one that I spoke to Chris about was potentially the spray pattern of the injectors. So Felix originally had Deca 4 injectors, so 630cc, but I found out subsequently they were fake. I checked with Siemens themselves, I showed them pictures, I've been online and I've spoken to a lot of professionals in the market, and they've all said they're fake injectors. I was absolutely gutted at the time because I thought I'd got them from a respectable dealer, but hey, these things happen. I ended up buying a set of brand new Deca 4 injectors directly from Siemens, and their spray pattern, rather than having the single hole that sprays out, it's got 4 small injector holes in, but it gives a more direct spray pattern. I had the new injectors when it went for the rolling road, so there's a potential that they were spraying directly down onto the base of the inlet runner and causing it to splash all over the place. Pain in the backside, as you can imagine. So I ended up getting another set of injectors, which I'll get to in a sec. So that was one of those things with the injector spray. What was the 4 versus the originals versus the fakes? One was a straight, one was a spray. So potentially looking at, because it's acting as a single point injection, essentially with 2 injectors, you want a spray rather than a direct pattern. Moving on to do, so I measured the valve movements as well, so I took the cylinder head off and checked side to side movement, all was good. Same for the head off as well, so checked all the marks, etc., and that was all fine. So valve guide for wear, the valve sealing, they were lapped back in, there was no issues beforehand, and then any stem seals were replaced along with it. But the big change is ended up going for a set of Bosch 750 EV14s, so the latest version of the Bosch injectors. I went to a 750 because I couldn't find them close to 600. However, speaking to Chris at EFI Parts, he did say to me, actually the latest technology within these injectors, the smaller pulses that were ideal for your idling states, don't worry about these injectors are phenomenal. Don't worry about going too high. So I ended up getting a set of 750 injectors, and they're in the car at the moment, and it idles fine and it runs. It seems to be running fine. But there's a few other bits and pieces that I've been working on as well. So that inlet manifold had a sharp peak as the if you imagine the air running into it and the fuel, it had a peak right in front of it and then split directly in. Now it might be great for a carb, but not so good when you've got two injectors that might favour one port over the other. So I ended up grinding that peak back and smoothing it off. So hopefully that should all work now. So where I am at the moment, I'll get to the car. So as I've talked before, there's the new Volkswagen coil pack, and hopefully I've made that bracket nice enough so it all looks a bit more OEM and neater from there. The other thing that I did whilst the car was off the road is I actually put in a new tank for the charge cooler. So this little black one next to the bonnet prop stay, that's for the overflow, something I didn't have before. I have got a new one which will go further at the back. It'll probably go around there, so I'll get that bolted up and remove the old igniter from the back. I went for new brake lines, new Hell brake lines, so they don't loop round as much on the charge cooler, which has made things a bit better. Over here, Matt at TIGworks has made me a expansion tank for the MPI. It fits quite nicely on rubber bobbins, so it's out of the way and it's not so much blocking the inlet the filter when it goes down there. I have put heat-proof material on the fuel pipes, and I've changed the fuel pressure regulator, and that's gone with a fuel pressure sensor as well for the ECU. And then further around, I've done some neatening up and tidying up in general. At the back of the engine, as you see, no turbo, which is rather annoying at the moment. It is on the floor, but I'm doing some work at the moment with the drain, and I've got a cad gasket waiting to go on there at the moment. The parts are in front of the car. So there is the turbocharger at the moment. So I'm just waiting for the exhaust manifold to come back, and the charge cooler is sat there as well. So in the meantime, there's not a great deal for me to get on with, but as you can see, it's slowly getting there. So inside the car, hopefully you can all see, I made a few changes. The big one being the CAN display. So this now shows my lambda, my map, my inlet air temperature, coolant, etc. It's showing -10, -20 at the moment because I've got them unplugged, and yeah, I've explained why. Fuel pressure and ignition timing, and I've still got oil temperature, the boost, and oil pressure as well. Very, very important for turbo engines. So when driving now, this actually makes life a hell of a lot easier because I can see the lambda and I can see what the ECU is doing. It gives you a lot more information. As you remember, I never had a stereo. This car's too loud for a stereo. So it actually has made a nice little, almost OEM, could you say, addition to the dashboard. The big yellow line, well, that's for communication with the laptop, and I've just got a little piece underneath there. The big one, the big change, is you'll probably see under here. So this itself is a Haltech keypad, so I can do a lot of stuff with this. So this one I can change the boost settings with. So all off, that's actuator pressure, and then it goes 12, 15 and 20 psi. I've got anti-lag as well, that's always good fun when you're out and about. Launch control as well, and the beauty of launch control is it's unarmed, and when I do that, if I push the clutch pedal down and I am not going over 5 miles an hour, I then just hit the accelerator and it's set for 4,200 RPM and it spits loads of flames. Video. And then the next one is fan override. So the fan works normally anyway through the ECU, so once it gets to about 96, 97 degrees centigrade, I can push, it'll come on automatically and it'll come up with a little orange light anyway, but the green says I've manually overrided it. So very, very useful, like coming back from a good thrash with the car, I can just push that and then, yeah, cool the car down a bit. Now these four, this is where it gets very interesting. So I have cruise control now. Yep, cruise control. So when I'm driving, normally,
that's absolutely fine. But I can go, right, okay, cruise control, and I'll activate the system, and then I can go boop, and that essentially sets, well, push that one, sorry, it sets, and then once it's set, I can go up, and I can go down, and then if needs be, push the brake or the clutch, and it goes away. But if all going completely wrong, just push the big button and it turns everything off. So that's really, really useful. Nice to have. Shame it's orange and doesn't really match everything. This was a temporary location originally. I was going to put it somewhere else. I did think about putting it down there. Thought about putting it there. Did think about putting it in the glove box. Problem is, it's very difficult to reach when you're driving along and you want to get to it. However, I've got monkey arms, so I can actually reach this quite nicely whilst I'm driving. And the nice thing is, as well, whilst I'm in a driving position, I can see what's going on with this. So great addition. The other thing is my oil pressure light, which was there originally, that you'll know on the MPI, that's actually the ECU light. So if I've got a fault or anything like that, it comes on. So the reason it's got a fault at the moment is because my inlet manifold is off and a lot of the sensors have been disconnected, so it's come up with a warning error on that. So when I'm driving, if I'm driving along and that comes on, nope, I haven't got an oil pressure issue. It's just something's wrong, or the ECU's found something, because my oil pressure I find from that. So it does make things easier. Again, if any of you guys have got any comments or queries about any of this, please just put it in the comment section. Happy to answer it.
So that's where we are at the moment with the cars. Apologies for not having updates in the meantime. I know it's been a fair amount of years since I've ended up doing one of these videos, but unfortunately family life has taken precedence on it, so I will slowly get round to doing more videos on it and hopefully see you guys at a lot of shows. I'll take some videos when I'm there and on the way, and as I do more bits and pieces to both the cars, I'll keep you all updated. But in the meantime, thanks very much guys. Thanks for being patient over the last few years, and I'll try and get more videos out. Bye for now.